Hi, welcome to Mark Bajerski YouTube channel. Welcome to the Pure Energy Healing Academy. How you doing? Got a t-shirt on. I don't know if you can see it, but what does it say? It says love, believe. I think believe. I guess it's believe. Oh yeah, believe in yourself. So we're going to talk about happiness and how to find happiness and how to, create it. So if you don't know who I am, my name's Mark Bajerski. I think I've already said that. And I've been a healer of people's, let's say, negativity, their fears, their sadness, their grief, their absolute heartbreak, their depression, their illnesses. For 2 decades now, 2 decades and thousands of clients of helping them see and clear and heal through the process that we all go through. Remember, our body is one of the most powerful tools in this universe. Never, ever are you told this, but your body is a self-healing mechanism that is so powerful that the darkness, which is always around us, tries to hoodwink us from not realizing that. We're told every day that we need external forces to heal us, but as a healer and somebody who feels people and their energy in so many ways, that might just throw you off and now you're gone, but I really mean that. When you feel people, you can see that they vibrate at frequencies that either kills them or heals them, and it's incredible how it works. So let's have a little workshop, shall we? I'm really happy to do this. I'm happy to sit here and share the knowledge through my clients and what I've witnessed as a healer for so many years. So, like I said, my take on all of this is very different from many other people who talk about happiness, because my take is happiness can't just manifest in a simple and easy way. And I think that is something that we have to admit. It's not that easy. You can have short bursts of happiness, but you always revert back to something that I call the root cause of happiness. Well, you could actually call it the root cause of sadness, but really it's the root cause of happiness, because if you find the root cause and heal it, then happiness comes. Therefore, what is the worst thought and feeling you ever have as a pattern of a yearly, let's say weekly or monthly energy, emotion, thought? What is it? Could it be a family member that you miss dearly? Could it be a brother that said something horrible to you? Could it be a mum that never gave you love? Could it possibly be your best friend that you worked with for many years and then they stabbed you in the back? Could it be you did something to somebody that you lived to regret? Could it be that something happened to you where you fell over and somebody didn't help you at that point, or maybe caused the accident, so you hold a grudge against something? Could it be that you feel bad because you look upon other people that are doing better than you? Could it be that your dreams and goals are not being met as you thought they would, so now you feel bad and you don't believe in dreams, you don't believe in love? Could it be a religion that you was in that you thought was loving and then you found out wasn't so loving after all? So I guess there's so many things to ponder on right now as we think about this, and you're going to ask the question, I thought we were going to talk about happiness. Well, you can't have happiness unless you clear all the suffering from your body. You can't have happiness until you clear all the regret, jealousy, anger, bitterness, what he said, she said, the trauma, the blocks, the fears. So we need to first of all look upon ourselves as a container of energy. And you've got to look at your life as the vessel that scoops up all of these energies and all of these experiences. So everything that we see, everything that we hear, everything that we experience, we scoop up and we hold inside this vessel. And many times we just leave them there because we don't have a solution. We don't have an understanding. We just can't simply figure it out. So what I call them are unresolved files. Unresolved files normally sit in three major places. The first place, of course, will be the computer that we have, is the brain. But the thing with that is these files start to generate a kind of grey matter. And the more we think about, the more we store, the more we have unresolved files, the more it spurts out of the file because there's no more room. And it starts to seep down into the heart. So the second place, the residue of unresolved files, is in the heart, and it's felt sometimes quite painfully. But then it can go even further. It can go down into the stomach, and predominantly it sits in the stomach as the worst cesspit. So you can see unresolved files can really cause great damage, not just because you can't find your happiness, but also because that cesspit of energy starts to manifest. It starts to, it turns into something so awful that it eats away at the physical and then causes cancers, disease, issues. And disease is simply a scream out of hell because the body is suffering in an energetic and emotional way. So now you're starting to see the real root cause of happiness. So you can't have happiness unless you clear all of those things. So how do we recognize those things that stop you from happiness? How do you recognize the root cause of happiness? The mirror is the most interesting energy that I've ever experienced as a healer. And as a healer, we become mirrors of other people's, let's say, weaknesses, because we all have them. I have many of them. Most of us are, let's say, too weak to face those weaknesses. And what I mean by that is that you're not a weak person. It's just, it takes too much effort, too much time. It's too difficult, and we never have those moments where we understand what these unresolved files are. Of course, because that's why they're there. They're there because you haven't been able to work it out. So the first thing I'd like to say is that the root cause of happiness is unresolved files that we have to take one by one. What does that mean? Well, let's say that your filing cabinet in your mind is like your mother's or grandmother's jewellery box. There was always a bunch of jewellery that was stuck together. Do you remember? There was chains, there was beads, there was all sorts of stuff, and they were all entangled. If you were ever a child and you were a good-hearted child, you'd go into that jewellery box like I did, and you'd try to untangle them. And you'd realise after a few minutes it was so exhausting and you weren't getting very far that you just dropped them all down, and that enthusiasm had disappeared and you were gone. There is some truth in this. The reason why we went into that jewellery box, because we wanted to make things better, just like your filing cabinet. And the problem is we want to make things better now, instantly. When in actual fact, true healing takes time and it takes effort. So the way I understood this as a healer, and what I could see very clearly, that you can't tackle all those bracelets, rings and necklaces and rosary beads and plastic jewellery. You can't undo them all at once. It's impossible. So you focus on one thing and one thing alone. And whatever you're focusing on is what you stick with. So you start with, let's say, a blue set of beads, and you start by untangling one bead through this and through that, and then keep doing it. And it takes time, but you keep doing it and go gently, and eventually that one blue bead is free. That's exactly the same as your emotions. You tackle one thing at a time. So let's say it's your mother who never really gave you the love that you wanted. How do you tackle a mother's love that you wanted in the way you felt was important and you felt was how it should have been? Well, what I have noticed is that many mothers came to me and many daughters came to me. The mother and daughter came together sometimes and separately came. And one thing I noticed was that the mother always really believed that she did her best. She always believed that everything she did for the good of her daughter. The daughter then would come for a healing session and a psychic read and would say that my mum isn't the kind of loving mum that you would expect. And I would say, but your expectations of your mum is different. So you are different from your mum, right? And you'd go, yeah, I am different from my mum. Okay. So your life, do you think your life from growing up till now was different from your mum's life when she was growing up with her mum? Well, she'd have to agree, yeah, it was very different. And tell me a little bit about your mum. What did she go through when she was younger? Oh, well, she went through a lot of pain and suffering. Oh, okay. So could it be that your mum didn't get the love that she thought she should have got from her mum? Yeah, quite possibly. And the love that you have for your child, do you think that your child believes that she has enough love from you? Oh yeah, definitely. And then a lot of the times that very same daughter would bring her daughter, and her daughter would say exactly the same as her mum would say about her mother. So that was very interesting. And as a healer, we could observe that this pattern is quite evident through the whole of the family. And what I saw with many families and many mums and many sons and many fathers is that the love of a father to a son, the love of a mother to a daughter is the best love that they can offer, the best love that they can give. This is the only love they know. A great example is my father. My father, in my opinion, back then, didn't know what love was, had no clue. However, there was moments where he would kiss me on my forehead when I was asleep. That was his greatest love. That was the only love he knew. That was the most powerful love that was coming from him. And just because I didn't feel that, because I wanted more and I expected more, didn't mean that his love wasn't as powerful as what love I have to my children. So I realized his love was powerful in his own unique way. And my need of my dad to love me in the way I wanted him to love me was actually indeed quite selfish. Not that my dad was perfect, far from it. But what I'm trying to say is that when you can step into somebody else's shoes and you see that this is the best they've got, this is the best they can work with, this is what they truly believe. And this is just one aspect. There are many aspects. Another aspect is jealousy. There's many mothers that believe that their daughters and vice versa are jealous of one another. And we have to ask ourselves, where does this jealousy come from? And why would anybody be jealous of somebody else, especially if it's within a family? And again, we see quite clearly that these are weaknesses within us. It has nothing to do with who we're jealous of. The jealousy lies within ourselves, so it's our issue. So if you're a daughter and you would come to me and say, my mum is terribly jealous of me and she doesn't give me love and she's always attacking me and I can feel jealousy. Well, we have to understand what the root cause of jealousy is and the suffering that they must have gone through as a child. So each time we take a piece of jewelry away from all of these issues within ourselves and within those around us, which is obviously the same because you're living in the same ball, you're living in that illusion of the family and friends and issues. You have to work on every single piece. How do we find happiness? We find happiness by finding a resolution to the issue that we have that does not allow us to find happiness. So as a healer, I would give a healing session to a client and they would feel this instant joy, this joy that doesn't last forever, only lasts for a short moment. Could be music that you play, could be scoring a goal or passing your test or doing something wonderful and feeling that joy, but then it disappears. And why does it disappear? Well, daily life kind of brings in a lot of heartache to many people, stresses and the worries and the fears of paying your mortgage and keeping everybody happy and looking after yourself and so on. But predominantly, the suffering of not being able to find your happiness comes in kind of moments of energies that are created within ourselves through everyday interaction and your past. So it could be that when a healing session is done, my client gets up and smiles and feels the most happiness that they've ever felt in so long. I noticed a pattern that happiness would only last for so long. I used to believe it was the mind that would only allow the happiness in because it's been so programmed, but then I realized that's not always the case. It was evident that happiness is taken away because of an external energy or an internal energy of blocks, worries, fears, and so on. But predominantly I would find that by simply saying to the client, okay, now that you feel happy, now that you've had a healing session and we've cleared the negativity away from what you've created and what the surroundings created and what other people create or the computer or everything else, I want you to do me a great favour. What's that, Mark? I want you to observe yourself from this moment on when you walk out of this door. And I want you to feel the happiness that you feel, but I want you to also be aware of any negative thought that you get from this moment on. What do you mean? Well, let's say that this joy that you feel, is there anything that stops you from feeling that joy in an instant and your thoughts change to negativity or dark or fear or worry or all the other low vibrations? I want you to sit down and ask yourself what it was that made you feel bad. And please ring me up and let me know. And I did this with clients that didn't pay because it was kind of an experiment. So they would phone me and say, Mark, I'm at home. And I'd say, oh, okay. Is anybody at home? No, just me. Did you have any thoughts? No, I didn't. I just started feeling bad. And I'd say, okay, so what it sounds like then is your house may hold negative energy, and I'd like you to now cleanse your house and sage your house and tell me how you feel afterwards. They call me back and say, I feel a lot better, and I'm feeling better and better. Okay, good. Ring me back when you stop feeling better and you start feeling bad again. So the phone would ring again. I went to see my mother-in-law. Okay, so there's an issue with your mother-in-law. Yeah, well, that's what we need to talk about, your mother-in-law. So they'd come back and we'd read and we'd talk about the mother-in-law and we'd see why the mother-in-law was the way she was, and we'd also see why we would react to the way we reacted. And it was always a twofold energy. The mother-in-law was triggered by the person, by you, and you were triggered by her. So it's a dual energy and you both have to learn, but not that you have to teach her anything, but she has to teach herself and figure it out herself, and maybe she might not do that. You're blessed enough and you're ready enough to be able to see what you need to change within yourself. And what I found was that pattern after pattern after pattern, Every time you untangled another issue that you felt, that happiness started to grow more and more. So it was like through the day you would have more happiness. So today, I had 20 clients that did this experiment with me, because I was always doing experiments because I wanted to know and understand life, health, well-being. I also wanted to know all about energy and how it worked. I wanted to know about trauma. I wanted to know how illness started. So these are the things that I learned. So what I found, that every time we untangled the jewelry from that box one at a time, that person would be stronger every time they came. And that would be the way that I helped my clients over time. And that was my secret, my source of successful healing from deep trauma, physical illness, what some people call mental illness, which is crazy and not true. Just the word that is crazy, because there's far more to that than meets the eye. And helping people through traumas, illnesses, addictions, deep depression, and so on. So that was the formula I used. You can say whatever you want about finding happiness, and you can read as many books as you want, but that doesn't bring happiness. Happiness is only brought into your life when you work and you climb that mountain towards happiness. So you can read many books, and that's almost like a helicopter ride halfway up the mountain. Another book, but the real work towards happiness is yours. The internal work, the observation and recognizing all the things that need to be resolved in your life. So the second part of finding happiness is a complete and utter 100%, no questions. This is just has to be that you hold no hate inside you towards anybody or yourself. None at all. So when asked many times, Mark, who do you hate? Nobody at all. You see, my limit to happiness is only to hear if I hate somebody. If I don't hate anybody, then my happiness is internal, because you always find there's a limitation to happiness through what you feel in a negative sense. So I can't be happy because of my issue with my brother. I can't be happy because of the issue with my father. I can't be happy because of the issue with my grief or my guilt. I can't be happy because of this. You're absolutely right, you can't. You can only be happy for a little bit, but that guilt or that negativity or what you could have done or what you should have done, coulda, woulda, shoulda, is going to limit you to finding that happiness, or in other words, living a life of happiness. So therefore, finding happiness and living in happiness can only go back to the focus of the root cause of happiness, and that is the suffering and low frequency that's within. So the golden nugget of truth, how do I find happiness? You have to work on all your weaknesses. You have to work very hard at learning how to not hold on to grudges, not hold on to grief, not hold on to jealousy or pain, not hold on to believing that somebody's more powerful than you, not hold on to all of these things that hold us back. So ultimately, when you have gone through all of those bracelets and necklaces and rosary beads, and you've now put them all in a line and they're all beautifully laid out and there's no issues at all in that jewelry box, everything's perfect. It's very similar to cleaning out your cupboards. You clean out your cupboards and you feel cleaned out in your mind. Everything's in order. Well, you've also got cupboards inside your brain and your heart and your stomach, and you have to clear them out. And that is the beginning of happiness. That is how happiness starts. So let's start. What upsets you most of all? What stops you from finding happiness? What thought of weakness holds you back from happiness? So we could go on and on, we could deep dive, and we could talk about dreams. Dreams, and I talk about them all the time. Dreams are beautiful, but they're not always what you think they are when you reach the dream. So in truth, a dream is actually the most beautiful thing. To dream the dream. To have the reality of that dream sometimes is not so wonderful. And that can lead you down a slippery slope. Something to be aware of. Many people try to strive for happiness in a way that they have instant quick fixes. That isn't happiness. That is almost like a drug-induced energy. And therefore you will become addicted to that. That isn't eternal happiness. That is chasing something that is external. Deep happiness lies within us and stays with us and is always with us. And to always recognize that there's always going to be challenges along this journey. So to understand that happiness comes and goes depending on our environment of energy, negativity, depending on the people around us, if they're happy or they're sad or angry or they attack us again. All of these things are part of the journey of life. So it's very easy to talk about happiness and achieving happiness. But happiness isn't always going to be there because of external issues and problems and things that we see in the world and the lies and manipulations and what scallywags do daily and what could happen to us at any given moment in a car accident or anything, or a house being broken into. So in truth, happiness and living in happiness is actually a lie. It's not really true. It's something that we strive for, and I believe that we can ultimately live in more joy and more happiness than sadness and fear and worry and hate. And ultimately that's the whole point. Clearing the trauma, clearing the blocks, clearing the environment, clearing people out of your life that are toxic takes you one step closer to living in harmony, balance, and a good energy. And indeed, brings moments of happiness, and those happiness moments grow longer and longer and longer. Did you know that if you give somebody happiness who's sad, they struggle with it? I've done healing sessions on people that struggled with happiness, and they reverted back to sadness because that's what they were used to. They couldn't believe that happiness was there. And some people felt so good from it, and they thought, okay, so if I felt this happiness, it means I can have it back again because it's just gone. But because I felt it, it means that there's hope for me in my life, because that person might never have felt happiness from being abused as a child and grown up with abusive partners and so on. But after a healing session, they felt a kind of sense of peace and joy and happiness just for a brief while. But then they attacked themselves and they cleared that away because of self-worth or lack of self-worth, and I don't deserve this, and guilt and hate and rage. So each individual is different, and you can't look upon a book that will fix you by how to find happiness. My take on it is that you are an individual and you're beautiful and you are amazing. And all the things that you've been through show me who you are. And the more you've been through, the more powerful you are. Which means that you can have the power of happiness if you just change the chip. If you just delete all that was and start again. Forgive. Forgive everything and forgive yourself. And each moment you grow stronger. Smile. Wow, I feel better today. I felt better today. How much by? 10% better than I did yesterday. Wow. What about tomorrow? How do you feel today? 11% today. So it's going up. How do you feel? 5% today. Okay. So what was your worst feeling? Oh, my worst was 1%. Have you ever felt 1% since you started working on yourself? Actually, no. Exactly. You never go down that low ever again when you start working on yourself. These are golden nuggets of truth, by the way. Are you sick? Not so much these days. Do you remember when you were really sick? Or I remember when I was really sick, irritable bowel syndrome. It was just awful. I was in hospital, or I had back pain, or whatever what you think is a mental illness. Is it still? No, it's not as bad as it once was. Okay. So Mark Bajerski learns from his clients that actually, the more healing you give yourself, the more you work on yourself, the less you're ever going to get down to where you once were. So it's a constant climbing that mountain. And the top of the mountain is happiness. But you've got to do it yourself. You've got to work it yourself. If somebody fixes you quickly, you never really learn anything. So a healing session is beautiful, but it's not the answer. It just helps you find the strength to heal yourself, step by step, moment by moment. And every healer, every person that you meet, every person that holds your hand and gives you a gift and tells you you're beautiful and gives you a cuddle, they're all healers on your journey. They're all there to help you. Ultimately, the most beautiful thing in this world is being around somebody who finds their joy. Why? Because they shine a light so bright. So yes, it's true. Find people who are beautiful. Go to Mother Earth as much as you can. Work on your body and heal yourself as much as you can. Work on finding the times where you laugh and listen to beautiful music. And listen to people who make you laugh. All of that is one step further. But also, you have to look at the shadows within. You have to look at the painful situations that you need to navigate through and figure out. And ultimately, forgiveness of all things, is that what sets us free? And that is the key to happiness. Have a beautiful day. Take care. Food for thought. I could have talked all day about this, but hopefully this half an hour video may serve you well in your heart. I send you love. I send you all my joy today. And if I'm not feeling well tomorrow, no problem. It's okay. I accept it. I ask why. Could be the energy. Could be the moon. It could be anything. Could be a thought. But I'll look at it and I'll face it and I'll question it and I'll forgive it and I'll let it go. And that will be my tools to help me finding my happiness in all good time. Take care.